Simba felt the room freeze the moment his father's voice cut through the cheerful holiday chatter. He stood at the doorway, two kids holding each of his hands, when his father murmured with a disgusted smile, "This was meant to be a nice day. Why did you bring them?" The children looked up at Simba, confused and scared. And Simba realized something heartbreaking. His father wasn't just rejecting him, he was rejecting his children too. Simba walked into his parents' house with a small smile, holding his children's hands. Every year, their holiday brunch was something he looked forward to, something that reminded him of happy childhood moments. But the moment he stepped inside, he felt the air change. No one smiled at him. No one reached out to greet the kids. Instead, everyone stared like he had brought trouble into their celebration. Simba tried to stay calm. He had come with good intentions. After Namsi, his ex-wife, left the children 6 months ago, he had been doing everything alone. School runs, bedtime stories, cooking, comforting them when they cried at night. He hoped bringing them today would show his parents that he was trying his best, but his parents didn't see it that way. His mother whispered loudly enough for others to hear, asking why he brought those children, when the family was trying to look respectable. His father shook his head, calling the kids baggage, that made Simba look irresponsible. It felt like a slap across his heart. He tried not to show the hurt, but his daughter felt the change immediately. She squeezed his hand tightly and looked up at him with wide, confused eyes. "Daddy, are we not welcome?" she asked softly. Those words cut deeper than anything his parents had said. Simba knelt beside her and forced a gentle smile, trying to hide how his chest was tightening. He reminded her that she deserved love everywhere she went, even if some people failed to see her worth. But inside he felt a familiar pain, one he hadn't felt since. He was a child in the same house. Relatives whispered behind him, their eyes filled with judgment instead of kindness. Simba could feel every stare pushing him lower and lower, making him feel like he didn't belong in the home he once cherished. He tried to sit down with his kids, hoping things would improve, but the coldness around the table only grew stronger. His son quietly asked if they had done something wrong, and Simba quickly shook his head, assuring him they had done nothing at all. But the truth hovered in the air. His own family saw his children as a problem, not a blessing. And Simba felt his heart breaking in a way he hadn't expected. The brunch that once meant love and togetherness was now filled with rejection, judgment, and shame. And Simba knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same again. Simba helped his children take off their coats and guided them toward a corner where they could play quietly. He tried to act normal, pretending everything was fine, even though his chest still felt tight from the cold welcome. He gave them small toys from his bag, smiled at them, and told them he would be right back. He wanted them to feel safe, even if he didn't feel safe himself in that house. As he stepped away to get them some juice, he heard low voices coming from the dining area. At first he didn't pay attention, but then he recognized his father's tone, sharp, disappointed, the same tone Simba had heard all his life when he was younger. He paused behind the wall, not meaning to listen, but unable to walk away. "He used to be promising," his father said, shaking his head slowly. "Now look at him. A single father with 2 burdens." Simba froze. The words hit him straight in the chest. His children, his whole world, were being called burdens. His heart dropped, and his palms grew cold. He wanted to step forward and defend them. He wanted to say his kids were the best part of his life, but he couldn't speak, not because he agreed, but because he didn't trust his voice not to break. His aunt's voice came next, even sharper. "Why doesn't he just drop the kids with their mother? He can still fix his life. He can still rebuild if he stops dragging them around." Simba stood there, unable to breathe for a moment. Drop the kids? To the woman who abandoned them? The woman who walked away without looking back? He couldn't believe his own family would say something so heartless. They had no idea how many nights he stayed awake comforting his daughter when she cried for her mother. They didn't know how many times his son asked if he was the reason she left. They didn't know the pain he carried every day. But instead of support, they offered judgment. He swallowed hard and forced himself not to make a sound. If he walked in now, they might turn it into another attack. So he stayed hidden, quietly breaking. Inside him, something fragile started to crack. Still, he took a slow breath and wiped his eyes before any tears could fall. He knew he needed to be strong, for the 2 little souls who trusted him completely. When he returned to his kids, he smiled like nothing had happened. They ran to him, happy and innocent. They had no idea that just a few steps away, their father's heart had been shattered by the people who were supposed to love him. Simba sat with them quietly, holding their small hands, reminding himself that they were not burdens. They were the only thing keeping him standing. Simba sat with his children, helping them open small snack boxes he had packed from home. He tried to keep his smile steady, but his mind was already drifting far away, pulled back into memories he wished he could erase. The house around him looked warm and decorated, but to him, it felt exactly like it did when he was a little boy. Cold, judging, unforgiving. He remembered standing in the same living room years ago, wearing his school uniform, holding a certificate he was proud of. He had worked hard for it, stayed up late, studying, hoping his father would finally say he was proud. But instead of praise, he heard his father laugh and say, "Your brother came home with a trophy. And you bring paper?" His relatives agreed, saying Simba needed to try harder, think bigger, be more like his brother. That day, little Simba had walked to his room with his head down, the certificate shaking in his hand. He had cried quietly into his pillow, wishing someone, anyone, would tell him he was enough, but no one did. His father kept praising his brother's success and rewriting Simba's achievements as unimportant. Every win felt small. Every effort felt invisible. As an adult, Simba thought he had healed. He built his own life, created his own path. But now, listening to his father call his children burdens, he realized the pain was still buried inside him. It felt like history was repeating itself, but this time, it wasn't him being hurt, it was his children. He looked at his daughter holding her juice with her tiny hands. He looked at his son sitting close to him, leaning against his arm the same way Simba used to lean against his grandmother for comfort. The thought of his kids experiencing the same rejection he faced as a child made his chest ache deeply. Simba remembered the promise he made years ago, lying in bed after another harsh comment from his father. He had whispered to himself, "When I grow up, my children will never feel this pain. I will protect them. I will love them loudly." That promise became his strength over the years. And now, sitting in the same house where he once felt small, Simba felt that promise burning inside him again. The fear was real. He could already see how his children were being judged before they even understood what judgment was. But he also felt something stronger, determination. He refused to let the cycle continue. He refused to let his children grow up thinking they were not enough. He knew the pain of being unseen, unheard, and unvalued, and he would do everything in his power to make sure his children never carried that same wound. Simba took a deep breath and held his children a little closer, silently assuring them that no matter what happened in this house, he would always choose them. Always. As more guests arrived, the house grew louder and busier. People moved around carrying plates, talking loudly, blocking hallways and doorways. Simba kept glancing at his kids to make sure they were okay, but each time someone walked in front of him, he lost sight of them for a moment. He told himself they were fine, probably just exploring or looking for a quiet space. But after a few minutes, he realized something felt wrong. He scanned the living room. They weren't there. He checked the dining area. No sign of them. His heart began to beat faster as he hurried to the kitchen, hoping to see them standing near the counter. But the kitchen was full of relatives who looked at him strangely when he asked if they had seen the kids. No one had. Suddenly, fear rushed through him. He called their names, first gently, then louder. Still no answer. He moved from room to room, opening doors, checking corners, looking under tables. His palms were sweating, and his throat felt tight. His children had never disappeared like this before. He could only think of their scared little faces, unsure of where he was. Simba ran to the hallway, calling again, but all he heard was laughter from the guests who had no idea what was happening. He stepped outside, hoping they might be in the garden. The cold air hit his face, but he didn't stop. He checked behind the trees, near the fence, by the small garden bench. Nothing. Then he heard soft crying. It was faint, coming from behind the old backyard shed. Simba rushed toward the sound, his heart pounding harder with each step. When he reached the shed, he found the door shut tightly. The crying grew louder. He pulled the door open quickly, and there they were. His daughter and son were sitting on the dusty floor, tears running down their cheeks. They looked terrified. They ran straight into his arms as soon as they saw him. He held them close, trying to calm them, but inside, rage was building fast. Between sobs, his daughter whispered that Simba's brother had pushed them into the shed and locked the door. He had told them that kids needed to be out of the way so adults could eat in peace. Simba's jaw tightened as he carried his children back toward the house. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't screaming, but the anger in his eyes was stronger than any loud voice. When he entered the living room, everyone fell silent. He stood tall, still holding his kids, and said in a steady but fierce tone that cut through the room that no one had the right to treat his children like they were unwanted things. His calmness made his words even sharper. For the first time, his family saw the side of Simba they had ignored for years. The father who would fight the world to protect his children. Simba held his children close as he stood in the middle of the living room. Everyone watched him, some pretending they hadn't heard the truth, others looking away in guilt. The room felt painfully quiet, but Simba already knew what he needed to do. His children were still shaking from being locked in the shed, and he refused to let them stay another second in a place that treated them like they didn't belong. He gently wiped their tears and picked up their small jackets from the chair. His daughter clung to him, still scared, while his son kept glancing nervously around the room. Simba leaned down and told them softly that they were going home. Their eyes brightened with relief, even though the sadness of the moment still hung around them. Simba turned toward the door and began walking out. He didn't wait for apologies or explanations. He didn't ask why his brother thought it was acceptable to lock small children outside. He didn't argue with anyone. He had finally understood that some people would never see his worth, no matter how hard he tried. And he refused to let his children grow up thinking mistreatment was normal. But just as he stepped outside, his father's voice boomed from behind him. "If you walk out, don't bring your drama back into this family." The words hit the air like a stone. Simba stopped for a moment, not because he was hurt, but because he finally saw everything clearly. To his father, standing up for his children was drama. Protecting them was drama. Expecting kindness was drama. Simba didn't turn around. He didn't argue. Instead, he bent down to his children and whispered in the calmest voice, "We don't need anyone who makes you feel small." His daughter nodded slowly, and his son held his hand tighter. With steady footsteps, Simba walked toward the gate. He didn't look back at the house he once called home. He didn't want his kids to see him broken, because he wasn't. He was disappointed, yes. Hurt, yes. But he was not defeated. He was choosing peace over pain, love over approval, and his children over everything else. As they reached the car, he helped them inside and took one last breath of the cold air. It felt like freedom. When he drove away, he wasn't running. He was leaving with dignity. For the first time in years, Simba felt like he was finally doing the right thing for himself and for his children. He wasn't leaving because he was weak. He was leaving because he was done. When Simba reached his apartment with the kids, everything instantly felt calmer. The moment he opened the door, the warm light and quiet peace inside the home wrapped around them like a soft blanket. His children ran to their favorite corner, where their books and toys were neatly arranged. They knew this place was safe. They knew this place was theirs. To anyone else, Simba's apartment looked simple but organized, comfortable, and full of love. To his family, who judged him from a distance, they imagined he was living a hard life, struggling to raise 2 children alone. But they had no idea who he truly was or what he had built behind the scenes. After settling the kids with snacks and a movie, Simba walked to his desk. The moment he sat down and opened his laptop, it became clear that his life was far from what his parents believed. Emails from 3 different countries appeared on his screen: Kenya, Rwanda, and South Africa. They were all waiting for Simba's approval on new delivery routes. Simba wasn't just employed. He owned a fast-growing logistics company that he built from scratch. While his family had been looking down on him, he had been creating something big, something valuable, something that many people depended on. He opened a folder showing business reports, graphs of rising profits, and expansion plans. His company already handled thousands of deliveries every week, partnering with small businesses and large firms. He wasn't just doing well. He was slowly becoming a major name in the transport and logistics industry. Then a message popped up on his screen from a transport tech company in Europe. They were interested in forming a massive partnership, one that could change Simba's entire future. The meeting was scheduled for next week, and Simba was preparing contracts that could multiply his company's worth. It was an opportunity that many business owners dreamed of, and Simba had earned it through hard work, long nights, and endless determination. While he worked, his children climbed onto his lap, giggling and showing him their drawings. Simba smiled and gently kissed their heads, never getting annoyed or pushing them away. They were part of his life, part of his success, part of his strength. If anything, they were his reason to fight harder. The peace in his home was completely different from the tension he had just left behind. Here, no one called his children a burden. No one criticized him. No one made him feel small. Here he could breathe. Simba looked around the room. The laughter of his kids, the screen full of opportunities, the quiet comfort of his own space. And he realized something important. His family thought he was failing, but they had no idea that he was actually rising higher than ever. They saw a single father. But in reality, he was a powerful man building a future far bigger than they could imagine. Weeks passed and Simba focused on his work and his children, far away from his family's stress and judgments. But back in his parents' home, everything slowly began falling apart. His father's business, which he had proudly run for years, started losing clients one after another. Deliveries were delayed, partners pulled out, and money stopped coming in the way it used to. His father blamed everyone but himself, insisting the problem was temporary. But deep inside, he knew things were getting worse. One afternoon, his parents sat at the dining table with worried faces, papers scattered everywhere. Bills, notices, warnings. His mother kept asking the same question. What are we going to do? His father tried calling Simba's brother, the son he had always praised, the favorite, the one he believed would always succeed. But the brother didn't answer. Later that evening, the brother finally called back, only to admit something shocking. He was bankrupt. His investments had failed, his business had collapsed, and he had been hiding it from everyone. The parents stared at each other in silence, unable to process the truth. The son they trusted to hold the family together had nothing to offer. Their only hope now was Simba, the son they had insulted, shamed, and pushed away. But pride kept them from calling him immediately. Still, desperation grew each day. Eventually, they discussed asking him for help, though both felt embarrassed to admit they needed him. Then, during a family gathering, a distant relative walked in and asked casually, "Have you spoken to Simba? His company is doing so well." Now, his father frowned. "What company? He's struggling with 2 kids." The relative stared in disbelief. "Struggling? Do you know Simba's company controls half the regional distribution now? Everyone is talking about it. His trucks are everywhere. He's even working on an international partnership." The room went silent. His parents froze in place, unable to speak. His mother's hand stopped midair, and his father's face went pale. They exchanged a look that carried shock, confusion, and something they had never felt toward Simba before, fear. All this time, the son they had dismissed as a failure was quietly becoming a powerful name in the business world. While they spent years criticizing him, he spent years building a life they never imagined. They suddenly realized they didn't know him at all. They had judged him without seeing his strength, his growth, or his success. And now, the same son they pushed away was the only person who could save them. Yet they weren't sure if he would even open the door for them anymore. One rainy evening, while Simba was helping his children with their homework, there came a soft knock at the door. It was unexpected, almost strange, because very few people visited him without calling first. His children looked up, curious, but Simba gently told them to continue writing as he stood, and walked toward the door. When he opened it, he froze for a moment. Standing outside, wet from the rain, were his parents. His mother held her purse tightly, her eyes nervous, and his father stood beside her looking smaller than Simba had ever seen him. They both looked unsure, almost lost. They had expected to find Simba living in a tiny, stressful apartment, barely managing life with his 2 children. That was the picture they had painted in their minds, because they never truly tried to understand him. But when Simba stepped aside and they looked inside, their eyes widened. The home was warm and bright. The living room was clean, organized, and peaceful. Children's drawings hung on the wall, a sign of love and encouragement. Soft lamps lit the space, and the smell of fresh dinner filled the air. It was nothing like the sad scene they had imagined. Before they could take it all in, the kids ran past Simba. laughing as they chased each other around the couch. They looked happy, free, and safe. His parents stared, shocked to see joy where they had expected struggle. For the first time, they realized Simba had built a stable life without depending on any of them. Simba remained calm, neither welcoming nor rejecting them. He simply asked, "What brings you here?" His voice was gentle but distant. He wasn't rude, but he also wasn't the old Simba who begged for his family's approval. He stood tall, confident, and very different from the man they had pushed around for years. His father cleared his throat, trying to speak, but the words came out uneven and broken. He started with excuses, then moved to a shaky apology. It was clear he felt more embarrassed than truly sorry. He spoke about misunderstandings, about family challenges, about hoping to fix things. But Simba could tell that the apology came late only because they needed something from him now. Simba listened without interrupting. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He stood there quietly, absorbing every word but giving nothing back. His expression remained calm, unreadable. When his father finally stopped talking, Simba simply nodded once. He made no promises, no quick forgiveness. No imos en el reunión. He showed respect, but he kept his distance. And as his parents stood there, unsure of what to say next, they finally understood that the son they once controlled was now a man they could no longer sway. Simba stands in his living room, feeling the heavy silence after his parents finish explaining their situation. His father's voice is shaky as he finally asks the question they came for. He looks at Simba with tired eyes and says, "Can you help the family survive this difficult period?" The words sound unsure, almost forced, and Simba can tell this request is not coming from love but from desperation. Simba takes a slow breath before answering. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't show anger, and doesn't try to hurt them. He simply says in a calm and gentle way, "My children's safety and peace are my only priorities now." His words are soft, but they carry a strength his parents have never heard from him before. It is the voice of a man who has survived too much to be shaken again. His parents look at him in surprise. They expect him to rush forward, offer money, offer help, offer anything just to feel accepted. But Simba doesn't move. He doesn't argue. He doesn't remind them of the years they ignored him, or the times they made him feel invisible. He has no need to prove anything anymore. His mother tries to speak, but her words fade when she sees the calm look on his face. For the first time, they understand that the son they treated like a burden has grown into someone strong and peaceful. Someone they can no longer control with guilt or pressure. Simba doesn't punish them. He doesn't insult them. He doesn't talk about revenge or payback. He simply stands tall and chooses his own peace. He refuses to carry their problems on his shoulders like he did all his life. He refuses to run after their approval. His father lowers his eyes, realizing the answer is final. Simba is not angry, he is done. He has stepped out of the role they forced him into since childhood. The role of the unwanted son who had to work harder, apologize first, and beg for love that never came. Now he is a father, a provider, and a man building a life that is safe and beautiful for his children. His parents leave the house slowly, knowing they cannot demand anything from him anymore. As the door closes, Simba feels a quiet relief, not because he rejected them, but because he finally chose himself. He chose a life free from pain, free from seeking approval, free from old wounds. He didn't fight them. He didn't save them. He simply chose peace. Months later, Simba sits on a quiet hilltop just outside the city, the warm glow of the setting sun painting the sky in orange and pink. Below him, his company's new headquarters stands tall, a symbol of every long night, every sacrifice, and every challenge he faced to build something meaningful. He leans back slightly, letting the cool breeze brush against his face, feeling a peace he hasn't known in years. Around him, his children run freely across the grassy hill, their laughter echoing in the open air. His daughter spins in circles, her hair catching the sunlight, while his son races past with a toy car, shouting excitedly. Simba watches them with a soft smile, realizing that this freedom, this joy, this safety, is what he fought for all along. No judgment, no rejection, no unkind words can reach them here. He reflects on the long journey from that painful holiday brunch to this moment. The family who once shamed him, the father who called his children burdens, the relatives who whispered and laughed, they no longer have power over him. The life he built is more than success. It is love, security, and happiness for the ones who truly matter. Simba's heart swells as he leans down to ruffle his daughter's hair and scoop up his son, holding them close. In that embrace, he understands something he always knew but finally feels completely. Family isn't just about blood. It isn't about approval, or who is present in the same house. Family is about those who share your heart, those who lift you, protect you, and love you unconditionally. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to return to prove himself to anyone. All the anger, all the pain, all the years of seeking validation, they no longer matter. He built a life that cannot be taken away. He built a world where his children will never feel small, never feel unwanted, never feel small, never feel unwanted, never feel rejected. A soft wind blows across the hill, carrying with it the scent of freedom and hope. Simba closes his eyes for a moment, feeling the calm and strength of everything he has accomplished. He whispers to himself, almost like a promise, "This is our new beginning." The sun dips lower, casting long shadows, but Simba doesn't feel fear or loss. He feels fulfillment, peace, and love. He built this life with his own hands, and he knows now that this laughter, this safety, this quiet joy, is the true victory.